Good afternoon. It's Captain Stitches. Hi, I'm Jean. Welcome to part 4 of my embroidery slow stitching journal that we have the series going on, teaching embroidery stitches and also how to put together a slow stitching journal. Today, we are going to learn 3 more embroidery stitches and possibly go over just a little bit on the thread basting of your pages. Hopefully some of you have started laying out some fabrics on some of your pages, and we will go over on how you can baste those down. But first, let's see what our stitches are for this week. So put that out of my way. We are going to be learning the lazy daisy stitch and the interlaced stitch. That one doesn't show up too good. I'm going to use a different color. And the French knot. Those are the stitches that we will be learning this afternoon. So we're going to start off with our lazy daisy stitch, and that can be found on page 38 of your embroidery handbook. So going to get our thread, make sure we have a knot in it, and we'll do part of the flower up here and then show how we can also do this one down here. But you are going to start at the base of your petal, and we'll start in the middle here, and you're going to come up right in the middle on the bottom of that. I think you can see my needle right there, and you're going to take that up and you are going to keep the thread above your needle. You're going to go back down right beside where you came up and bring your needle up at the center of the top. You can see my needle right there at the center. And then you are going to pull that gently. Don't pull it too tight or you'll make your petal narrow. So when you see that it's filling the space, just make sure that it's not loose, but you don't want to pull it too tight because it will narrow your petal. And then you're going to go down right next to the top there where you came out. And pull that all the way through. And there you have your first lazy daisy stitch. So then you're just going to continue on the same way around your flower. So we're coming up at the bottom again. To make sure that our thread is on top. I'm going to go down right next to that. Bring our needle up again at the top of that petal. You can see that there. And then you're going to pull it through. Make sure that when you pull that you are pulling straight out from your stitch. And you can hold that with your thumb as you put your little stitch down right where you came up to tack that down. And pull that. And you will just continue going around your flower or whatever it is that you may be doing. A lot of times it may be a small leaf instead of a petal of a flower. There's several different things that the lazy daisy stitch can be used for. I came up at the bottom, going right back down, right next to where I came up. And we're going to come up at the top of that stitch again. Pull our thread straight up, not too tight, and then go right back down at the top where we came out. Right next to it. Don't go right in the same hole. Just continue around until you have completed the entire petal. turn that a little bit more. And just a little too far over there. I want to get my needle in the middle of that petal down there at the bottom. Down right next to it. Bringing our needle up at the top again. We're just making that nice petal-shaped loop. And taking it to the back. To the next one. Do those a little close together. And that's okay. Kind of like a daisy flower, and they don't grow perfect out in nature. Some of their petals overlap, some of their petals fall off. I didn't turn that quite far enough, so I'm working at a strange angle there. Sorry about that. Need to turn the fabric a little more. Oops. Don't want it in your way though. Try to keep that out of the way of you seeing. Okay, so there we are with that one. We just got 3 more to go. If I can get my needle to come up where I want it to. Sometimes it takes a few tries. Keep poking and it's like, okay, it's not quite going where you want it. I'm working at that odd angle again. You'll get used to moving your hand around so you can get where you need to be. Bring it down at the top. We're ready to come up at the next one. Where am I? There I am, so you can see. Just bringing that up right in the center of the bottom. Back down right next to it, up at the center of, okay. Needle doesn't want to go where I want it to. Center of the top. Pull that through. Again, make sure you don't pull it too tight or you'll get your petal too narrow. I'm going to make it the size that your petals are on your pattern. This is our last one. Right down there. Up at the top. If it moves a little on you, you can always play with it with your needle and get it where you want it. So let me tie this thread off on the back real quick just by weaving under some of these stitches. Not that I know it's not going to come out. Maybe we will cut that off. There we go. Put a knot in that. And so if I pick it up to use again, I won't pull it through thinking that it's already knotted and it thread comes all the way through. Okay. So there you have your lazy daisy stitch. And you can go back after we've learned a French knot, and you can put some French knots in the center there where the little center of the flower is. And we will show how to do one of these down here as well. I think I should have enough thread still in my needle. But on this, we're kind of going the opposite direction. I'm going to start at the top here. And bring my loop down at the bottom. And I'm going to come up here at the base of it this time. And pull that. And then we are just going to make a long stitch all the way down. And that is how you would make all of those. Or a different way. See if I've got enough thread in here to do one more. We're going to start at the tip because that's where our point is on it instead. Going to make our loop. Go right back in, right next to where we came up. Thread's getting in the way there. We're going to bring our needle up at the bottom. Loop it around. Got that. And then go straight down for our long stitch. And that is how you would make those. And now I'm going to tie this off once again. This time I don't have enough to go through there, so I'm going to have to make a little knot. Okay. So now we are on to our next stitch, and we'll show the lazy daisies again, which this one kind of twisted that on there just a little bit. That could have been a little better, but it's okay. So now we are going to do our interlaced stitch, and that is on page 36 of your handbook, which is this one. And you're starting off with a back stitch for your line, and then we are going to loop through back and forth through our back stitch for the lacing part of that. And I am going to use a different color that is going to show up better for that. We're gonna use the blue for our back stitch. And remember the back stitch, that's what we did the first part one for all of our grid was the back stitch, where you're starting in from what your first stitch is going to be, and then you are working backwards. And then you're coming forward ahead of that for your next stitch, and going back right in the hole of your previous stitch. Going forward. And we missed it just by a little bit, but back, forward. You're just trying to be consistent in the size of your stitches. That is your back stitch. Used a lot for lettering, outlining, lots of things in embroidery. It's going to go all the way across our line here. Hopefully we've got enough thread on the needle. I don't know if you noticed, but I always use my thumb to force the needle to come up where I want that stitch to come up. Can kind of use it as a guide. A lot of times you will find if you're wearing nail polish, you'll kind of scrape against your nail and it'll remove some of the nail polish there on the end of your finger. Just part of the woes of loving to do hand stitching and embroidery. And we're almost to the end here. One more stitch. Ooh, that's going to be a tiny one. Okay, so we have our baseline of our back stitch. I'm going to weave my thread back and forth between some of the stitches back here so I don't have to tie a knot. It's going enough that way. No, it's not going to come out. And we will cut that. Oops. And we brought a bunch of thread down here with it. We don't want all that. Pick that up with the thing. And now I don't have a needle threaded, so we're going to use the pink so that it will show up this time. So I'll get my needle threaded here. Hopefully. It usually, works good until you're on camera and then you have a problem. But using my needle threader. Use that. Make sure you hold up at the top of that wire, not the bottom of it. You'll end up breaking your wire if you tug too far down on it. Just doing our quilter's knot again. Thread. Okay, so now we've got our base line of stitches there. We are going to start by coming up at the bottom of that first stitch, not in it, just right at the bottom of it. Wiggle my needle there so you can see it's right at the bottom in the center of that first stitch. And then we are going to make sure I go the right direction. We are just going to go under the next stitch and over. We're just going over and under, weaving it through our stitches. Very, very easy to do. See that? Oh, it's just interlacing through. Just weaving it up and down through the back stitches that we just made. Very, very easy stitch to do. It's a fun one. Just keep going until you're at the end. Going to bring it to the back. Weave it under. at that thread. Oh, that'll hold it. And since I have my needle threaded with the pink, we will do, and let me show you that closer again. That's what you end up with. You just weaved in and out through your back stitches, and that makes a pretty interlaced effect. Excuse me, sorry. Now we're going to do the French knots, which that happens to be one of my favorite stitches. I love just filling in a bunch of area with French knots. And give your stitching quite a nice effect. But so for the French knot, you're just coming up at from the bottom. You're going to lay that down so you can take your other hand and hold your thread out from that. You're going to wrap it around your needle twice. Sometimes it'll call for different wraps. And then you're going to hold that down away from that with your other finger as you pull your needle through to the back. And don't let go of that until you get to where it is right there. And there you have your little French knot. The important part is to hold it down and not let go of that thread too soon, or you will get a little messy wrap on the top of your fabric. Holding it down with my thumb, bringing it, and when you get to where it's pulling out from underneath your thumb, that's when you let loose and slowly pull it the rest of the way. You've got another French knot. Up, wrap around twice, and you're putting your needle not right in the same hole, but real close right next to it. You put it in the same hole you came up in, you'll end up pulling it right through to the back of your fabric, and you don't want to do that. But there, very, very easy to do the French knots. More. This is French knots are another stitch that you will use quite frequently in embroidery. And we got a thread caught in there. Let's pull that out. Just wrapping it twice, pulling it down. You have to hold it with your other finger while you get your other hand around there. That's okay. You just want to go slow and steady on these. That's the trick to it. You don't want to do them too fast. That's when you can end up getting a knot or it messing up and twisting on you instead, and then you don't have a nice, pretty flat round knot on top. Say I'm holding it down with that finger while I get this one under there because I'm having to reach a little farther than I was to get it under there. And there you have your French knots. And again, I'm just going to weave my thread underneath the stitches on the back. enough to hold it, sure that it's not going to come out. You can just cut that right close to the back so you don't, oops, my needle minder. Have a magnetic needle minder there, and the little metal part on my clip was getting stuck to that. But so there we have our lazy daisy stitches that we did first. We have the interlaced stitch, and we have the French knots. And if I didn't tell you what page those are on page 32. So those are your stitches for this week. I'm just going to work my needle up here, get that out of my way. And I was working on my lap app as I did that, which is this little wooden tray. I've shown that before. It takes the stress and everything off your shoulders and your arms while you are stitching. And you use it when you're sitting in a chair in your lap. It's not something you really want to use on top of a desk or whatever. That just puts a little bit of strain on your arms and shoulders instead. But when you're sitting in a chair working on your lap, they are very, very nice to use. But now we're going to talk about, for those of you that have started laying out some of your pages, which that fell out, and I'm going to raise the camera just a little so we can get more of this page in the view. Trying anyway. Let's see. I'm trying to find what I did with my controller. We'll see if we zoom out just a little with that. There. That'll help you see it better. I'm going to turn this long ways. Let's see. We can get it on there and better in view for you. But there we have our page that we are working on. Set my mouse up so I don't knock it off. But all of our pieces of fabric that we decided to use are down, and I showed you last time on using that little dot of glue just to temporarily hold them down so you didn't have to have a bunch of pins in here. And you're going to not have, if you've got something that's going over the top of something else, like the My Embroidery Slow Stitching Journal, you're not going to have that on when you start. You're not going to have this or your butterfly on when you start doing your basting. Because all you're going to do is what I use a size 10 crochet thread for my basting in a neutral color that's going to kind of blend with whatever I'm using on the page, which this has white background, so that's why I'm using that, because you may decide to leave some of your basting stitches in. You can remove the ones that you don't, like I probably wouldn't leave them on, on the green up there and where I'm going to be doing other decorative stitching. But here on this white part, you would be able to leave them because they're not really going to show. And they are also a decorative stitch because you're just doing a large running stitch. So, and you are just going to keep going. I started at the end. Let me pull that down a little farther. Started at the end here, and I just went up all the way to the top and across all the way down, and then you just keep going around, making sure that you're catching all of those pieces of fabric until you get to the center. And then after you've done that, you've got that all basted, so it's holding everything, so you can work with it. I decided that to put this back on, and I am embroidering through all of the layers, the My Embroidery Slow Stitching Journal with a back stitch up here. And we can put that back on, and that will be stitched over as well. And they're just pinned on for right now until I get those stitched a little bit. And then I just stuck the butterfly there with the pin to remind me that it's going there. I would move it out of the way when I'm stitching. It wouldn't be there, but put it there so you could all get get the effect. And the lace is also here, but because that is going to be the spine of my book, I will not be attaching that until this back page is also done, because there will be the lace going down that side as well, and I will be stitching that right down the middle fold of the journal. And so, but that is how you can start basting if you are laying out some of your pages, and we will go over more page layouts and stuff and some decorative stitching in our next part 5 next week in the series. Go over that a little bit more so you can start putting in the decorative stitches and everything on the pages. So you might want to have at least 1 or 2 layouts in your book and besides your stitches, embroidery stitches that we learned this week. So that is everything that I have for you. I hope those of you that are doing this along with me are enjoying the process, are having a great time, and are learning as we go along. Hopefully those of you that have wanted to participate in learning some embroidery stitches are getting a handle on those stitches and practicing those in between the series each week. So thank you, everyone. Have fun with your slow stitching journal, and I will see you next Tuesday for part 5. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.